Welcome
to
Weird Shit Wednesday, episode 8.
Dang.
We are in episode 8 already. Can you believe that?
8 is great.
8 is great. Or in this case, 8 is long as fuck.
Yeah, Ms. Kelly wrote a full-ass book report, and I felt like, I don't know, I'm feeling inadequate looking at my notes.
It's hefty.
She's got like
she'd be hefty.
That is a 1/4 inch of pages, y'all. I have maybe a millimeter.
Yeah. Buckle in. We're gonna be here a while. I went a little overboard, but I promise it is at least interesting.
Yes. It's gonna get weird.
It is gonna get weird.
As per usual.
We're gonna talk about some some stuff.
Okay.
Some wild things.
Okay. Well, I went first last time, so I'm putting it on you to start.
All right. I will kick it off then.
Miss Kelly, are you ready to present your book report to the class?
Always. I'm always prepared. Not really. Actually, to be fair, I struggled this month. This first topic, so my creature feature, is the only one I kind of right away knew I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the only one that ties into our tarot card. Okay. I struggled to find tie-ins.
I did too, and that's only because I forgot what it was and forgot to ask what it was again to refresh my brain.
Well, all right, so we'll see if you got it correct.
We'll just see. That'll be a challenge for the listeners. Can you find the connection in my stories?
I'm about to give you a hint here. Okay. So this is my only story that connects because we had the Page of Wands, which is not. If you get it in a tarot reading, it's a wonderful card to get because it's all about creative growth and new beginnings and prosperity and exciting things coming to you.
Oh, dang.
But
I missed a good opportunity there then.
Yeah. But it's not great for the creepy and weird.
Okay.
So, I did find a way. So I was doing some deep diving into the tarot, the history of that tarot card. And one of the things it can represent is inspiration. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm a creative type. How can I tie this into, creativity and art and music and the things that I love? And I thought a little what creatures in mythology have to do with creativity and inspiration and this card? And so we're going to talk about the muses.
Ooh, yeah.
We are the muses. Dun,
yeah.
dun. All right, we're bringing it back to Hercules yet again.
Yeah, it all comes back to Hercules. Hercules is like our Roman Empire, I feel like.
Hercules is our Roman Empire. That was
my first, the first Disney movie I actually, remember watching as a kid was Little Mermaid. But the one I remember watching and loving and continually asking to watch over and over again was Hercules.
Also.
So this just makes sense.
Yeah, Hercules is top tier, easily top 5 Disney movies of all time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It would be hard to put anything above it. I might argue for Aladdin because that was my first movie I remember watching as a child, similar to you with Little Mermaid. I was obsessed with Aladdin. I had the biggest crush on him as a little kid. I was like, I'm going to grow up and marry Aladdin and live in a palace with a tiger. I was going to be Princess Jasmine.
Well, yeah, tiger.
I have a useless cat with 2 brain cells to his name, but yeah, close enough. He is not a Raja. But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the muses. So, excuse me. I thought I'd give a little, I'm sure most people know of the muses at least a little bit. So I kind of focused on, just very briefly on where they came from or where they're believed to have come from. And then I wanted to talk a little bit specific about each of the different muses that exist. Because there's 9 muses in total.
Wow.
And so I have their names and then kind of what they're tied to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a nice little story that goes with them that I will share with you.
Very cool.
So bear with me as I try to pronounce Greek names because, yeah. Here we go. So, in ancient Greek religion and mythology, the muses were the inspirational goddesses of literature, science, and the arts. They were considered the source of the knowledge embodied in poetry, lyrical song, and myths that were related to oral storytelling for centuries in ancient Greek culture. The word muses is believed to come from the Proto-Indo-European root men or man, which can mean to put into mind or to have in mind, or can also be used to tower over or mountain. And often muses are depicted having lived in the mountains at that time. So that's where they think the name muses came from.
Okay.
According to Hesiod's Theogony, which was written in the 7th century BC, they were the daughters of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, which was a Titan goddess of memory. And Hesiod narrates that the muses were believed to bring people forgetfulness in the concept of like forgetting pain and the cessation of obligations.
So kind of like, hey, we are distracting ourselves from what we are like plagued with.
They're like the OG coping skills.
Exactly. We are stressed out about something. What do we go to? We turn to TV. We turn to
create.
We
turn make to music. Media. We make art. We make poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Alcman and Menearmus, which were other theologians at this time, they were believed to be more primordial, springing from the early deities of Uranus and Gaia, Gaia being Mother Earth, the early mother goddess who was worshipped at Delphi during prehistoric times, long before the site was redacted to Apollo, the sun god. So there's a lot of ties into Apollo as well with the muses. Sometimes the muses are also referred to as water nymphs and are often associated with the springs in Helicon and Pierus. And it is said that the winged horse Pegasus touched his hooves to the ground there and caused these sacred springs to burst forth, from which the muses, also often referred to as Pegasides, were born. And Athena later tamed the horse and presented him to the muses as a gift.
Oh.
Yeah. Time right back in Hercules again. Yes, it's all connected. The muses were more than just figures of inspiration. They're actively involved in guiding and assisting mortals in creative pursuits. Musicians would invoke some of them, poets, people seeking divine inspiration would invoke different muses for their natural gifts. So let's get into those 9 muses and what they represent. So the first muse is probably the most well-known and the name that I've personally heard the most in like tales and mythology, and that is Calliope. Mm-hmm. So Calliope comes from the word kalos, meaning beauty, and ops, meaning voice. And so she is the beautiful voiced one, or she of the beautiful voice. And she is the muse of epic poetry and eloquence, and is considered the chief of the muses, and is said to have inspired Homer in writing the Iliad and the Odyssey. She's also often depicted with a writing tablet, a scroll, and a pen.
Cool.
So she is the muse of writers, which is probably why I feel connected to her.
Excellent.
The next muse is Clio, which comes from the word Cleo, which means to make famous or to celebrate. Mm-hmm. And this connects to the broader concept of glorifying great deeds and achievements, and she is the muse of history. She is responsible for preserving memory and knowledge that comes from discovery and the investigations of the past, and is often depicted with a scroll or a book, and is also credited with introducing the alphabet to Greece.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. The next one is Erato or Aratu. Depends on the area. It can be pronounced either way. She shares in the linguistic root of eros, meaning love or desire. And her name suggests that she would inspire feelings of longing or passion. And so she is the muse of lyric or erotic poetry.
Okay.
Wow, wow, wow. Her name literally translates to the word lovely, and she's said to make those who are guided by her desirable and worthy of love. She's often depicted with a lyre, with hymns, and a wreath of roses around her head. Cute. Yeah. The next one is Euterpe. Again, apologies if I'm pronouncing this wrong. The pronunciation guide is in Greek, so not helpful. Mm-hmm. It's not IPA, which I do read. But this name combines the EU, meaning good or well, and terpo, meaning to please or delight. So her name literally translates to the giver of pleasure, or she who brings joy. She is the muse of music. Specifically lyrical poetry and the flute playing. So any flute players out there, this is your girl. There you go.
Hey, let's go.
Her name also can be translated to meaning the giver of pleasure. So she's often created with developing different musical instruments, such as the flute and the double flute. and is particularly associated with woodwind instruments and is often depicted carrying a flute.
Okay, cool.
So, flautists out there, she your girl. Our next muse is Melpomene, which comes to the word melpo, meaning to sing or to celebrate with song and dance. Her name literally translates to the singing one, and she is the muse of tragedy, because we all know singers are dramatic. She's often depicted with the tragic mask from like the theater half and half masks, where it's like one's smiling, one's sad. She's often shown wearing leather boots and has a knife in her hand, ready to pierce her own heart over the tragedy. Yes, she's a bit dramatic. She's the diva of the group, if you will.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
The next one is polyhymnia. Poly meaning many, and hymnos meaning hymn or praise. So she's translates to she of many hymns or she of many praises. She is the muse of sacred poetry, hymns, and religious ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
She's associated with geometry, meditation, and agriculture.
Okay.
She's got lots of jobs. She's busy.
She's busy.
She is often depicted wearing a tunic and veil, appearing thoughtful and serious, and is credited with explaining the origins of the name and the month of May, which is how I landed on this. Because we are in May.
Very cool.
So, and that will come back into play later.
That's a good tie-in. Nice job.
It'll tie into my next story. Our next muse is terpsichore. Terpsis meaning delight and choros meaning dance. So she who delights in dance, and she is the muse of dance and choral song, and is often depicted carrying a lyre. Our eighth muse, almost there, is Thalia, or Talia, depending on where you read it. She comes from the Greek word thalo, which means to bloom or flourish, and suggests abundance and joyful growth. She is the muse of comedy and idyllic poetry, and her name represents rich festivity or blooming, so she's often associated with like springtime and flowers and all that stuff. She is seen wearing a comic mask, so the opposite of the other one, and an ivy crown.
Okay.
And our last, but not least, of the muses is Urania. Her name comes from Oranos, meaning heavens or sky, and she is literally translated to heavenly one. She's the muse of astronomy and astrology, and is often depicted dressed in blue, holding a globe and a compass, and wearing a star or having stars on her dress. In some accounts, she is also believed to be the eldest of the muses.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love this, and it's funny, like you reading off all the names. I remember mentioning a while back when I talked about the Fates, and the book I was reading at that time, Zeus is Dead, and one of the Fates, I believe it was Thalia, is like best buds with Apollo, and she is helping out in the main storyline, and she's always like, well, wouldn't that be funny? Everyone just loves a good comedic relief.
Well, and that's perfect that she's the muse of thick comedy.
Exactly. And there's like little bits throughout the entire story that mention all the other fates of how they're like nearby certain events that are happening, hinting that they are the ones like kind of pushing or controlling that event from happening based on what type of
they're like guiding and inspiring. Yes,
exactly.
A lot of times, I mean, I think the muses have been depicted in so many TV shows and movies. I always think of like, I mean, even Supernatural had an episode where there was a muse that was harnessed for evil, and they had to kill her, of course, because that's what they do in Supernatural. Yeah. But in Charmed, there was a muse named Melody that would like inspire the witches to make potions and spells, and it's just like they're always kind of depicted as these very like warm, inviting, unseen beings that are just there to like offer support as you create, and they kind of, you know, like give you that little nudge to push you over the edge, which means Calliope, come give me a visit, because I've been having some writer's block lately, so I need that little nudge. But yeah, so we're gonna finish up with one of the stories. This is the most well-known story, and it's literally called The Legend of the Muses. So I'm going to read that as well. And this talks a little bit about Zeus and the different muses, and we're also going to get into Lysander, and yeah.
Okay.
So here it goes. In the verdant myth-laden land of ancient Greece, where gods and mortals shared boundaries, thin as a gossamer thread, there existed a legend known to poets, scholars, and artists alike, the legend of the Muses. These 9 ethereal sisters are said to dwell upon Mount Helicon, imparting gifts of inspiration and wisdom to those deemed worthy. Though timeless, their myth was woven with tales of mortal interactions, divine intercessions, and the mysteries of creativity itself. It was here upon this sacred mountain that seekers would journey, hoping to catch a fleeting whisper of the Muses' song or glimpse their dance under starlit skies. For millennia, the Muses have embodied the highest aspiration of art, literature, and music. The story that follows is not just about their divine role in Greek mythology, but a revelation of their enduring impact on creativity, passion, and the human expression. Let us journey back in time to when mortals dared to climb the heights of Mount Helicon, hoping to be forever changed. This begins with the birth of the Muses. It is said that in the early days, before the world was shaped by gods or men, chaos reigned across the heavens and earth. Yet amidst this chaos, a cosmic order began to take shape. Zeus, the king of the gods, saw the potential for harmony within the unruly elements, and so he sought to give form to beauty and wisdom in the world. To fulfill his vision, Zeus consorted with Mnemosyne. There's too many consonants and not enough vowels in that word. The goddess of memory. For 9 nights they lay together, and from their union 9 daughters were born, each imbued with a unique gift. These daughters would become the Muses, goddesses who inspired every form of creativity. Each was distinct, representing a different aspect of human and divine knowledge. They go on to detail all of what I just told you, so I'm going to skip that part. From their birth, the Muses lived upon the sacred Mount Helicon, where they learned to wield their gifts under the watchful eye of their parents. But they were not merely passive observers. They held the power to inspire or withhold their blessings as they saw fit. The next part is a mortal's quest for inspiration. In the small city of Thespiae, which is the birthplace of theater, yes, nestled at the foot of Mount Helicon, there lived a young poet named Lysander. Though his skill with words was renowned, he felt his work lacked a spark that no mortal teacher could bestow. He had heard tales from other poets who spoke in hushed tones of those who glimpsed the Muses and were returned forever changed. With a heart filled with longing and determination, Lysander decided he would embark on a pilgrimage to seek the Muses. As he began his journey, villagers wished him luck, their faces a mix of admiration and concern. Beware, an elderly poet warned him. The Muses are generous, but they are capricious. Not all who seek their favor are found worthy. Undeterred, Lysander climbed the rugged terrain, braving the wild winds and dense forests. Night fell as he neared the summit, and, exhausted, he sat upon a stone to catch his breath. He could hear the faint sound of music drifting through the air, as if the mountain itself were alive with melody. But as he looked around, there was no one in sight. Just as he began to doubt his senses, a figure appeared before him, an ethereal woman dressed in a flowing white gown. Her voice, soft yet commanding, filled the air. Lysander, why do you seek the Muses? She asked, her gaze piercing. Taken aback but resolute, Lysander replied, I seek the fire of inspiration to create works that move hearts and endure for a time. The figure nodded. Very well. Follow the path ahead and you may find what you seek. But remember, the Muses bestow their gifts only to those who are truly worthy. With that, she vanished into the mist. As Lysander ventured deep into Mount Helicon, he encountered a strange phenomenon. Each clearing, each twist in the path, held a challenge that seemed to tear his resolve and his understanding of creativity. The first trial was in a glade filled with ancient statues. Here, Cleo appeared, her presence solemn. History is a teacher, Lysander, she spoke. What is a poet without the knowledge of what has come before? She challenged him to recount the story of the Great War, a tale known to every Greek. But as he began, she interrupted him with questions that forced him to consider not just the facts, but the emotions and motivation of the people involved. Only when he showed true empathy did she finally nod in approval. His next encounter was with Calliope, who asked him to compose a verse on heroism. Lysander struggled at first, but his words felt empty. But as he thought of the lives and sacrifices of the warriors, he found his voice and penned a verse that moved Calliope to tears. Each muse presented a different trial, testing his understanding, his compassion, and his imagination. Melpomene asked him to feel the weight of sorrow, while Erato urged him to experience the intensity of love. Polyhymnia, that's a hard one to say, demanded reverence, and Urania opened his mind to the mysteries of the cosmos. With each trial, Lysander felt himself growing, not just as a poet, but as a person. He learned that creativity was not merely an act of skill, but an expression of the soul, the blessing of the muses. Having completed the trials, Lysander found himself at the very peak of Mount Helicon, where all 9 muses awaited in a circle. Their beauty was overwhelming, and he felt both humbled and exalted in their presence. One by one they approached him, each bestowing him with a unique blessing. Clio touched his forehead, granting him deep memory and understanding of the past. Calliope placed a laurel crown upon his head, symbolizing epic wisdom. Euterpe gave him a lyre, promising that music would always accompany his verses. Terpsichore traced his feet with lightness, making his steps fluid and rhythmic. As each muse bestowed their gift, Lysander felt a surge of power and inspiration filled him. Finally, Urania, who stood last, raised her hand to the sky. "Look upon the stars, Lysander," she said. "Know that every story, every poem, and every melody is a spark in the vast cosmos. You are part of something greater." In that moment, Lysander felt a profound connection to the universe. He understood that the muses did not merely give inspiration, they revealed the beauty and unity of existence. Bowing deeply, he thanked them, promising to use his newfound gifts with humility and reverence. When he returned to the city, the people scarcely recognized him. His demeanor was more profound, his gaze deeper, and his voice carried the weight of experience. He began to write and recite his verses, and the people were captivated, moved by words that seemed to carry a touch of the divine. His fame spread quickly, and poets from across Greece journeyed to hear him speak. They too were inspired, and soon Thespiae became known as the place where art and poetry flourished. Lysander shared his knowledge freely, encouraging others to seek their own connection with the muses. Years passed, and in the Lysander age his spirit remained youthful, ever attuned to the beauty of creation. When his time finally came, he ascended Mount Helicon once more, hoping for one final glimpse of the muses. The legend says that he vanished upon the mountain, leaving behind only a lyre and a single verse carved into the stone. To seek the muses is to seek truth, in sorrow, joy, in love, and ruth. For in each verse, in each rhyme, we touch the endless, the divine.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That was good. I like how in the story, like while he's going through his trials, they're not like just giving him the answer. He has to dig within himself and figure it out, which is pretty like
Yeah.
reflective of any like person working in the creative arts. You can't just do it. You have to practice at it. You don't just like, yes, you can have talent, but you don't gain your skill and get better at it unless you dig in and like try and practice and improve that way.
I think that's why, and I mean, we're both very creative humans, so I think obviously a little bit biased, but I kind of view the arts as like unique in that way because other talents, you know, like athleticism and, you know, math, you can practice the skill ad nauseum and improve. Whereas like true creativity and true artistic talent, whether it be musical, dance, visual arts, fiber arts, whatever. Yes, you can practice the skill and improve, but the truly great people in those fields have something special about them that's not just skill. Yeah. And I think that's what ties back into it is like there's that extra little something, and maybe it is like touching the divine. But I just love the like message of the muses is like you said, to dig within yourself and find the answers from inside of you, but also to like show empathy and care, and like that they tested him through kindness and compassion. You know, it's not like every time I hear Greek mythology stories, it's always like, oh, the strongest and the most mighty and the bravest, but this one is all about like the human connection.
Exactly.
And I think especially in, not to get political, but in the world we live in right now, we could use a little more of the muses.
Exactly. I agree. And great. And that's like one of the cool things about the arts too, is that yes, it is kind of a self journey, like when you're self-improving in your skill or whatever it is that you're studying or practicing, but also you need that human connection, because I wouldn't have gotten my knitting skills if I hadn't had my 5th grade teacher who passed that down to me. Oh, that's the sourdough bread if you heard the timer.
Speaking of creativity, we got some sourdough in the oven. So
yeah, and hey, even with baking, things like that, I wouldn't have been able to start this journey had I not known people that already had the knowledge and were able to teach it to me, pass it down, and that all comes from connection.
Yeah. And it's only recently in history that the arts were taught in a like curriculum-based setting. Up until like very modern history, every art form was taught through apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
You were gifted that knowledge from your elder, from the person who bestowed it upon you, much like the muses. So like it's, I don't know, I just love that like we're still so very connected to something that, you know, whether you believe in the muses being a real thing or not, it's from so long ago, and it's kind of cool to have that, like, see how that's continued to play out through history.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So next time inspiration strikes, maybe there'll be a muse visiting you.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay! Have you ever heard the phrase all kittywampus or catawampus?
Cattywampus, yes.
Uh-huh.
My mom uses that phrase all the time.
So it's meaning something is askew, out of alignment, or not directly
discombobulated.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or not directly across from something. I might have found the origin of this of the word.
Cool!
So we're digging into my creature feature for this month, which is the Wampus Cat.
Oh, I love this. I think I've heard of this.
Yeah,
like the name vaguely triggers some sort of memory.
Same. It kind of tickled the back of my brain. Thank you, Reddit. I was scrolling around and like I was just looking up cryptids and like my weird subreddit that I'm in, and the Wampus Cat popped up, and I was like, why does that sound vaguely familiar? So I dug down the rabbit hole and found a couple stories.
I love it.
I'm here for it. Little origin stories.
You're just on a cat kick. You did a cat thing last month too for your creature feature.
Oh yeah, we were on a cat kick, and that's going to continue on later too, and in a very
bring on the cat,
strange way.
Yeah,
bring it on. I'm a cat lady.
It fits.
It does. Or the Wampus Cat, like I said, legendary creature from the Appalachian folklore, particularly within the Cherokee community. While the specific origins of the tale vary, a common narrative involves a Cherokee woman who, driven by curiosity, secretly observed a sacred hunting ritual performed by the men of her tribe. To conceal her presence, she disguised herself beneath a cougar pelt. Upon discovery, the tribe's sorcerer transformed her into a hybrid being, part human and part cougar, condemning her to eternally roam the mountains as the Wampus Cat.
This feels like your dream. Part human, part cat?
Kind of, yeah. Not gonna lie, whenever we play D&D, every couple campaign cycles, I will always play a tabaxi, which is pretty much a cat person.
Be the Wampus Cat in D&D.
I could be the Wampus Cat. Kane, Rick, watch out. This is my next campaign idea.
Get ready.
Get ready. This myth serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of violating sacred taboos. The Wampus Cat is often depicted as a six-legged feline with glowing yellow eyes, symbolizing the blending of human and animal traits. So, like, when she's like wearing the pelt, I would imagine it has like the four legs of the cougar.
4 legs of the cougar, and then her 2 human legs.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Kind of morphed with that. In some versions, the creature is portrayed as a spirit protector, guarding the Cherokee lands against malevolent forces. The term Wampus Cat itself evolved from regional dialects. Catawampus, a term used to describe an unknown or mysterious animal, likely derived from catamount, an old name for the eastern cougar. Yeah. So
cool.
Kind of cool how like one word will branch off into another word, and that'll branch off into another word.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like lineage for a language.
Yes. This is really interestingly connected.
Mm-hmm.
This week on GMM, which if you're not watching GMM, go watch. I'm obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
They did an episode on this guy. He does TikToks and YouTube videos where he takes words and he starts with the like very first origins of that word and reads each version of it until modern day.
Oh.
And it's super interesting.
Oh.
So he goes through like the different like forms of the word in different like ancient languages up until the modern day English.
Cool.
So yeah, super, super cool. And of course they turned it into a game where they had to guess what the word was that he was trying to get to.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's super, super cool. And like how it's all connected and slowly morphs through time.
That is cool.
Yes.
In this region, as cougars became less common, the term transformed into Wampus Cat. which is still used in North Carolina to refer to any mysterious or unexplained creature. So a lot of short stories that I found, like on Reddit or on Cryptopedia and things like that, some of the Wampus Cat tales would be from the Cherokee community, and then also from old lumberjacks and miners, kind of like the one dog from
Yes. I
can't remember the name of it, but the something dog, something hound that you did. So like a lot of sightings from that. So things would go missing. Livestock would be killed like mysteriously with no traces of it. So the Wampus Cat kind of became the catch-all or the scapegoat for the region. Yeah. Over time, sightings and stories of the Wampus Cat have become part of local folklore, with reports of livestock disturbances and eerie howls attributed to the creature. This timer again. Sorry about that.
Timer, take 2. Don't worry, I'll let it do that.
That's all good. Whenever whether as a symbol of punishment or protection, the Wampus Cat continues to captivate the imagination, embodying the mystique and cautionary tales of the Appalachian region. There's a little picture of it. It's a little cougar with an extra sprout of legs. I've got a
it's like a cougar caterpillar.
Yeah, cougars are interesting. You do not want to mess with them. They are very, very protective of their young, and they're very territorial.
And their prey.
And their prey. And something also kind of creepy and weird about them is that their growl or their like mewl, they've learned to mimic the sound of a baby or like a human crying to lure people in to think, oh, they're in trouble and under distress.
And then chomp.
Kane has a funky story or a story from when he was a kid. I can't remember if it was a cougar or if it was a lynx or two.
They both make similar sounds.
Yeah, they're very similar. I believe he was 5 or 6 at the time. He was like a little kid. His mom tells a story of there was one night they were living in like Texas near that region, and she had gone to go check on him at night. And when she went in, there was a cougar in the bedroom, like laying in bed with him. Jesus, like he was zonked out, fast asleep. But yeah, his mom just like.
No wonder he's such a cat dad. He was adopted by a cougar at age 5.
Literally, she just like opened the door. She's like,
that cat's like, this my baby now.
Literally, the cougar was like in there probably thinking Kane was her cub and protecting him. And so his mom's like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to. Like,
you don't want to leave him. Yeah,
you want to leave him, but you don't want to scare it and have her either attack him or come attack her.
Yeah.
So she just kind of like hung out there in the doorway for a bit, just sat and watched, and eventually. Yeah. Here, kitty. And eventually the cougar like left through the window, and her mom's like, lock that up.
I bet his mom locked windows from then on.
Oh yeah, 100%. No more cougars coming in that door. Kane said he doesn't remember any of it.
No,
because he was fast asleep. But
that's wild.
Yeah, it's insane. So maybe it was a Wampus Cat.
Maybe Kane was meant to be a Wampus Cat.
He was meant?
It would explain why you're married to him.
Yes.
Even more than it already does. Like, that would be that makes sense.
There we go.
You married a part cat.
There we go. That's my story.
He's very feline-esque. Like, he's got thick, like, mane of hair,
a
lion.
He's got luscious hair. It's great.
You know, yeah. he gives off, like, house cat energy.
Yes.
My ex-stepfather used to hunt elk out in Montana. And he one time lost a kill because he shot an elk. And when he went to retrieve the body, obviously, a cougar had claimed it.
Oh, no.
And he's like, I'm not fighting a cougar for an elk. So he had to, like, slowly back away. And it was, like, snarling at him. Because it was like on top of the elk, like just going at dinner time, man.
This is mine.
And he had to leave the elk. He went back the next day to see like if he could get the horns or something, but the cougar dragged it somewhere.
Dang, yeah, they'll drag it like up into trees, very similar to like cheetahs.
And I mean, I obviously growing up in like the woods in like northern Wisconsin, I don't know that we really have much in the way of like cougars or pumas. They're also called pumas in some parts of the country. mountain lions. They're all basically the same thing.
Pretty much.
But we do have bobcat and lynx.
Yes.
And they do make very similar sounds. And we've had bobcats and lynx in our woods before. And I remember being like, as a young person, like probably like elementary age, like I wouldn't go outside at night anyway because I'm scared to death of the dark. I don't like being in the woods at night. It creeps me the hell out.
Mm-hmm.
I knew.
And we've seen enough TikTok videos granted, like, no, we don't have to be out there.
Well, and I grew up like literally in the middle of the woods. Like we had a 1/4-mile driveway and I was surrounded by trees.
Yep.
And this is like, middle of nowhere, freaking the closest town's 15 miles away, northern Wisconsin. And I knew like just animals alone. We had wolves, we had bear, we had mountain lions, we had coyotes. Like there were dangers in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And then as someone who's always been connected to like the paranormal and like ghosts, there was just always a presence at my mom's house. I did find out as an adult that someone did die on the property. So I think that's why, previous to us purchasing it, a man was working on his car and the car collapsed on top of him.
Oh.
Yeah. So I do know there was for sure one death on the property, but I also live surrounded by indigenous land. So there's also that connection of like indigenous spirits and creatures and stuff like that. So either way, I didn't go outside at night unless I absolutely had to and my mom made me, in which case I would sprint to whatever I needed and sprint back. And I'm not a runner, so if I'm running, it's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember many times hearing what I thought was a woman screaming.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking bobcat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's terrifying.
It's very freaky how they've learned to mimic that over the years. It's
insane. Such an eerie sound. If you've never heard it, count your blessings.
Watch out for the Wampus cat. She might be there.
Watch out for the Wampus cat. Although, would boop the snoot.
Would boop the snoot.
I feel like we need a rating system for a creature feature of like 1 to 10 would boop the snoot.
Yes, like I'll look at you, but I don't want to be anywhere.
10 is I'm gonna rub the belly.
Mm-hmm.
5 is I'll boop the snoot.
Mm-hmm.
1 is
I want to touch that with a 39 and a half foot pole.
Yes. 1 is Grinch logic.
Yes.
Beautiful. This is like an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Would rub the belly.
Yep.
Would probably die.
This is how I die. I will pet something,
but would rub the belly.
Yep.
All right. Shall we move on to places in the world?
Yeah. What in the world are we doing today?
Well, so this is where we're going to get lengthy.
Uh-huh.
But this is the one I struggled the most with.
Okay.
I had come across, like I said, the creature feature came pretty easily with the tarot card. The spooky spotlight I happened across when I was kind of just digging through like different ideas for like things that are tied to the month of May. Because I was like, well, I can't think of anything for tarot card, like then I'll try to tie it to the month.
Yeah.
And I found out that May is National Mystery Month. So that was like, so I found a really good, we'll get into that. But I struggled with this one. And so where I landed was, I was kind of looking into like different celebrations that happen in May, different holidays or things that happen in May.
Mm-hmm.
And with it bringing springtime and all blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about something that I think we all have experienced at some point in our lives, at least in the Midwest. I know it's quite common. And at one point in our life, we've all made May Day baskets.
Yes!
For our neighbors or family members at some point. And we're going to talk about how that originated.
I used to call it Ding Dong Ditch Day when I was a kid.
This, however, is going to get interesting because this is where we're going to dive into some orgy talk at some point.
Oh, probably.
So we're going to go from innocent, kind gesture to full-on multiple day naked festivals.
Okay. When you get to a certain point, I have a fun little interjection because I
see the word Beltane, don't you?
Yep, and I have a very fun connection to that.
I kind of hoped to, because I remember you mentioning at one point we talked about Beltane when we talked about Yule.
Uh-huh.
And I remembered us talking about that, and I was like, so May Day does connect to Beltane.
Yep.
And is very interwoven with it. So we are going to talk about May Day, aka /Beltane.
Not I'm in trouble. Mayday.
Mayday, not May Day, no. But May / month/day.
I do want to yell Mayday, Mayday.
Mayday.
Most days when I'm seeing what's going on in the world.
Same. Our whole world is screaming Mayday.
Mayday!
I think we just need to hit the reset button.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm okay with that. Save your progress. Reset.
Control-Alt-Delete. So, yes, in modern times, May Day is often celebrated by leaving baskets of small gifts and treats for friends, family, or even strangers as a way to spread joy in the celebration of spring. It's a kind and innocent practice, but one that comes from a celebration that is anything but innocent. May Day is a European festival of ancient origins, marking the beginning of summer, usually celebrated on the 1st of May, around halfway between the Northern Hemisphere's spring equinox and midsummer solstice. Festivities may also be held the night before, which is called May Eve. Traditions include gathering green branches and wildflowers, which are used to decorate buildings and made into wreaths, crowning a May Queen, sometimes with a male companion decked in greenery, setting up a maypole, having a May tree or a May bush, around which people would dance and sing, as well as parades and processions involving all of the above. Bonfires are also a popular tradition of the festival in some regions, and regional varieties and traditions include Walpurgis Night in Central and Northern Europe, as well as the Gaelic Festival of Beltane, the Welsh Festival of Colin Mai, and the May devotions to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it has been associated with the ancient Roman festival of Floralia. So, we're going to get into a little bit of the history, and then I have a couple different traditions from different regions that celebrate May Day in different ways.
Cool.
So, the original term for this day was Mayoma, which was celebrated at least as early as the 2nd century AD.
Dang.
When records show and expenses for the month-long festival were appropriated by Emperor Commodus. According to the 6th century chronicles of John Malalas, the Mayoma was a nocturnal dramatic festival held every 3 years and known for orgies.
Okay.
That is also known as the Mysteries of Dionysus and Aphrodite.
Okay, that tracks. Dionysus.
Which is where we get into it.
Dionysus is the original fuckboy.
Yes. And Aphrodite is the goddess of love and lovemaking. And is known as Mayomas because it is celebrated in the month of May, along with Artemosis. In ancient Greek religion and myth, Dionysus is the god of wine making, orchards and fruit, vegetation, fertility, festivity, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. He was a busy bitch.
Mm-hmm.
He was also known as Bacchus by the Greeks for the frenzy he is said to induce called Bacchaea.
Mm-hmm. Any nerds who like to play Smite and are familiar with this game, you get to play as different gods and goddesses from different cultures and whatnot, and Bacchus is one of them. And he's literally, his skin, he's literally just this big, like Fat Thor.
Oh, I love it.
He's running around with a keg, and one of his ultimates is a frenzy, where he like whips around and knocks their enemies down for a lot of damage. And I'm like,
that's funny.
I'm literally just picturing him running with his belly like jiggling side to side.
I love that. I love it. We're here for it. Aphrodite, as you know, is the ancient Greek goddess associated with love, lust, beauty, pleasure, passion, procreation, and as her Roman counterpart Venus is also associated with desire, sex, fertility, prosperity, and victory. Mm-hmm. She's like a representation of conquest. Ha! In the bedroom. During this time,
no kink shaming here.
No, we don't kink shame. It's 2025. Enough money was set aside by the government for torches, lights, and other expenses to cover a 30-day festival of all-night revels. 30 days of orgies.
No thanks.
Is basically what that means. That's a lot of fucking sex. Or, as I could say, that's a lot of fucking. Yeah, it was, the Romans did things big. It makes sense why they only had it every 3 years. You'd need 3 years to recuperate.
Yeah, especially, like, if you're getting that much intercourse and that much canoodling.
That's a lot of friction.
That's a lot of friction, and there's probably a lot of STDs floating around there.
You know, they didn't live long for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, syphilis was a thing. Anyway, the Mayoma was celebrated with splendorous banquets and offerings. The reputation for licentiousness caused it to be suppressed during the reign of Emperor Constantine. Though a less debauched version was briefly restored during the reigns of Arcadius and Arrhenius, only to be suppressed again during the same period. In the Middle Ages, May Eve was celebrated in much of Northern Europe with the lighting of bonfires. In the Germanic countries, this is where we begin to see Walpurgis Night. commemorating the official canonization of Saint Walpurga on May 1st, 870. It continued the tradition of lighting bonfires and was described by the folklorist Jack Santino as her day and its traditions almost certainly are traceable to pre-Christian celebrations that took place at this time. So yet more proof that all Christian traditions come from pagan rituals. What? I didn't say that. It's true. Christ was not born in December. Watch all the people leave. Anyway. In Gaelic culture, May 1st was the celebration of Beltane, while for the Welsh it is called Colin Mai or Sintefin.
Yeah.
It was first attested in 900 AD, and the celebration mainly focuses on the symbolic use of fire to bless cattle and livestock as they move to summer pastures.
Yep.
The custom continued into the early 19th century, during which time cattle would be made to jump over fires to protect their milk from being stolen by fairies. And people would also leap over the fires for luck.
Yep. So here's where my tie is.
All right, bring it in.
I have some fun pictures from when I attended the Beltane Festival that was held in Edinburgh in 2017.
I love
it. So here's the picture of the flyer or the little pamphlet I got from it. It was a whole evening of like ceremonies. You'd entered in, and like it was this big hill in Edinburgh where they kind of have like almost like a cathedral, where it's actually the nickname of that hill is the Shame of Edinburgh, because there is a sculpture/structure there that was under construction to be built to mimic the Colosseum or like the cathedrals like in Rome.
Yes.
And whatnot. But they only finished like a quarter of it.
They're not easy to build.
No, they are not easy to build. It's expensive. So the project never got finished. So it's literally just like one corner, one side of a cathedral or of a Promethean theater.
That's hilarious.
That's just there on a hill.
That's hilarious.
And now it's the center for a bunch of like festivals, concerts.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a very local hotspot. But it was so much fun. There was booths, there was food, there was fire dancing, and the evening started with this long procession, because each year they select someone from the community that's part of this Beltane society to be the May Queen, and I can't remember the name of her male compatriot, but they literally just like lead this procession, and then they light this giant bonfire, and there's performers, there's dancers like jumping over the fire and around and whatnot. It was so cool. It was so much fun.
That would be such a cool thing to be part of.
It was very cool. It was very jovial. Ooh. Like I was there from like 5 o'clock in the evening till like almost midnight.
I
like
love
it was that long. It was so much fun. And afterward, the people that participated in the ceremony,
blonde hair. That's wild.
It was. I was blonde.
You were like white.
Yeah. I had stark white hair, like a little Daenerys Targaryen moment.
It was very Targaryen of you, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much fun.
That
Well,
sounds amazing.
We'll have to post some pictures.
Yes, we can include some pictures of your Beltane festival.
Yeah, so there's my tie-in with the Beltane.
I love it.
So I was like, I've been there, I've done that.
Well, if we ever get to go to Scotland together,
we're gonna
go. We will time it so we can go to Beltane, because that is one thing I'd like to do.
Oh, yeah, so much fun. And funny enough, when I was there in 2017, that was their 30th anniversary of doing the festival at that location. So maybe we'll have to time it to do it like on another anniversary. Would be 40. The 40th. Let's go.
Anyway,
meet us in Scotland 2027. Let's go.
Live recording.
Ooh.
At Beltane.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. So love that. It's perfect because it does tie into the last little bit of this, which is just talking about the different legends and lore surrounding Beltane. There are a few stories that kind of come with this magical spring celebration. The first one being tied into similarities between Samhain, which I'm going to say correctly because it's not Samhain, which most people say in America, but it's not. It's Samhain. Samhain, the holiday of Beltane, is a time where the veil between the worlds is thin.
Yep.
And traditions believe this is a good time to contact the spirits or interact with the fae.
Yep.
Be careful, though, because if you visit the fairy realm, don't eat the food, or you'll be trapped there, much like Thomas the Rhymer was, which is a really fun story. Some Irish dairy farmers also hang a garland of green boughs over their door at Beltane. This will bring great milk production from their cows during the coming summer, and will also drive the cattle between two Beltane bonfires to protect the livestock from disease.
Yep.
Which I'm sure has some roots, like, in actual practicality, because, like, during the plague, they would burn things to cleanse them.
Yep.
And so, very similarly, like, if you're bringing your cattle between fires, you might be burning, like, some of those flies and things that carry.
Yeah, it's almost like you're saging.
Yeah,
a little
it's
bit.
kind of cool. So the Puritans were outraged by the debauchery of Beltane celebrations. Yeah. They made maypoles illegal in the mid-1600s because of this, and tried to put a halt to the greenwood marriages that frequently took place on May Eve. One pastor even wrote that if a maiden went to celebrate May, 9 of them would have come home with child. Or if 10 maidens went to celebrate May, 9 of them would come home with child. Because it's so debauchery.
Ooh,
so, okay.
Debauchery.
Get your freak on, yo. According to legend in parts of Wales and England, women would try to conceive on May Eve, or the last night of April, and would find what's called a birthing stone, which is a large rock formation with a hole in the center. They would walk through the hole, and it was believed that you would conceive a child that night. There is one of these still in England that you can visit. I've seen videos of it, where it's literally like a wall of stone, and there's like a hole in the center that if you slither your body through, and it's not a big hole, mind you. Us curvy bitches would not go well through it. But they still, like, people will still go, and, like, if they're really trying to get pregnant and having trouble, they will put themselves through this wall in belief that it will help them conceive.
New early day fertility treatments.
Yeah, you know, there's something. Who knows? But they say that don't worry if you can't find anything near you. You can find a small stone with a hole in the center and drive a branch of oak or other wood through that hole, placing the charm under your bed after to make you fertile.
Ah, there you go. Practicality and adjustments.
I like that.
Inclusivity.
Yes. If you go out at sunrise on Beltane, take a bowl or jar to gather morning dew. Use the dew to wash your face, and you're guaranteed a perfect complexion. You can also use the dew in ritual as consecrated water, particularly in rituals related to the moon or the goddess Diana and her counterpart Artemis. So, you know, we've got all the things going on. Skincare, fertility. Beautiful.
Oh.
In the Irish Book of Invasions, it was on Beltane that Pathlon, the first settler, arrived on Ireland's shores. May Day is also the date of the defeat of Tuatha by Danann by Amergin and Malaysians. It is also believed that babies conceived at Beltane are considered a gift from the gods and are sometimes referred as Merry Big O's because the mothers were impregnated during Beltane's merrymaking. In Cornwall, it's traditional to decorate your door on May Day with boughs of hawthorn and sycamore. And eating a special oat cake called a bannock or a Beltane cake ensured Scottish farmers abundance for the crops for the year. The cakes were baked the night before and roasted in embers on a stone. Today's pagans and Wiccans celebrate Beltane much like their ancestors did. A Beltane ritual usually involves lots of fertility symbols, including the obviously phallic maypole dance. Really dancing around a pole, so yeah, it's phallic.
Hey, it's got ribbons, and you're not like dancing on the pole, you're dancing around it.
She's dancing like a stripper. The maypole is a tall pole, decorated with flowers and hanging ribbons, which are woven in intricate patterns by a group of dancers, weaving in and out, and then the ribbons are knotted together by the time the dancers reach the end. In some Wiccan traditions, Beltane is a day in which the May Queen and the Queen of Winter battle one another for supremacy. In this rite, borrowed from practices in the Isle of Man, each queen has a band of supporters. On the morning of May 1st, the two companies battle it out, ultimately trying to win victory for their queen. If the May Queen is captured by her enemies, she must be ransomed before her followers can get her back. It's giving me, like, that would be really fun, like, LARPing adventure to do.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I love it. There are some who believe Beltane is a time for fairies. The appearance of flowers around this time of year heralds the beginning of summer and shows us that the fae are hard at work. In early folklore, to enter the realm of fairies is a dangerous step, and yet the more helpful deeds of the fae should always be acknowledged and appreciated. If you believe in fairies, Beltane is a good time to leave out food and other treats for them in your garden or yard. For many contemporary pagans, Beltane is a time of planting and sowing seeds. Again, fertility themes appear here. The buds and flowers of early May bring to mind the endless cycle of birth, growth, death, and rebirth that we see, like, globally. Certain trees are associated with May Day, such as ash, oak, and hawthorn. And in Norse legend, the god of Odin hung from an ash tree for 9 days, and it later became known as the World Tree. And if you wanted to bring abundance and fertility to your life, whether you're looking to conceive a child, enjoy fruitfulness in your career or creative endeavors, or just see your garden bloom, Beltane is the perfect time for magical workings related to prosperity.
Cool. If anyone is a fan of period pieces like Bridgerton, Downton Abbey, The Great, all awesome.
The Great.
It's so fun.
It's so good.
Yes, so much fun. And I love the amount of comedy that they slip into it. Like, yes, it's a historical piece, but it's funny.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. But within these shows, you probably have definitely noticed the elaborate and at times very strange headwear that they have, where it's from the hair pieces like Queen Charlotte to the very outlandish hats. And that's what we're going to get into today. The hats of the era. And a very strange fad that comes about for a good chunk of time. Mostly these hats, like the big outlandish ones that we see depicted in these shows or that we kind of think of when we think of the Victorian era hats, these are for the rich and aristocratic, wealthy individuals and the aristocrats of society in various historical periods used hats as ways to symbol their privileged status and elevated fashion taste. So it's kind of like, I have the funds to meet for these very outlandish and extravagant materials. Look at my status of society. It's almost like they're peacocking.
Yeah, they're peacocking.
Yep.
Look at me.
Hats were very often made of elaborate and luxurious materials and adorned with intricate embellishments. One of these trends would take a strange and nearly deadly turn for some when the rise of taxidermy hats gained popularity in the late Victorian era, well into the 1920s.
Ew.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I know. I was like, dang, that kind of surprised me that it went even into the 19th century a bit there. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. But
I mean, people were wearing fur coats as late as the 80s.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, they still do today technically, but they're not as common.
Yeah, they're not as common. And thankfully the ones that are still worn today, at least I know usually are like vintage.
They're vintage, yeah. I hope we're not still murdering small furry animals for fashion at this point.
So
we're not Cruella de Vil.
So taxidermy began in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries as a way to preserve animals collected by hunters and explorers. Travel was extremely difficult in those days, and Victorians would marvel at the exotic animals brought back from faraway lands. So, like, today we got zoos and things. So, like, hey, I want to see this animal. Whoop,
taxidermy it.
Yeah, pretty much. So hunters would go to places like Africa, Asia, wherever it may be, and it's like, oh, I've never seen this animal before.
Let me kill it.
Yep.
That sounds like typical human nature. Something new, let me kill it.
Yep, pretty much. So, because most of the times they would go see these animals, come back and tell the stories, and people would be like, no, that's not real. You're making that up. That's not true. So the only way to really prove it would be to go hunt it, taxidermy it, and bring it back. And from that practice is when they started to get a little extravagant with it, because typically with people in higher society, they would like pay or contract these hunters to go hunt down these animals, taxidermy them so they could display it in their homes. But obviously you don't want common riffraff coming up to your house, so they had to find more mobile ways of showing off these exotic animals. While the exact origins of wearing animals on hats is unknown, it took off in popularity and it grew. The absurdity of it all grew from there. We're going to get into some other adornments as well before I go a little more into the taxidermy side. But it's important to touch on this because it almost caused the extinction of an animal.
Unacceptable.
Very, very much unacceptable. So, when you think of hats, what is one of the things that kind of come to mind?
Well, we're talking lavish hats. I think of like the derby. Modern day derby is like another like modern day example of like all these crazy hats.
Yeah. Or when you think of like the things that they use to decorate it. What's something that kind of comes
veils or flowers or I don't know.
Yeah, you're on the right track. So yeah,
Jewels.
veils, flowers, feathers.
Oh yeah,
Also
feathers.
a very common decorating thing.
Plumes.
And to this day, still
Yeah, you still
pretty
see
common.
like ostrich plumes and hats pretty commonly.
Well, thanks to these people, we almost didn't have ostrich feathers to decorate hats.
Dang.
Because of a common plumage and decor for these intricate hats were ostrich feathers due to their large size and the ability to be dyed in an array of colors. Their popularity and demand grew so high that ostriches that originally inhabited virtually all of North Africa and much of Eastern and Southern Africa were nearly brought to extinction.
Good Lord.
They were literally hunted specifically just for their feathers. Ostriches had historically always been hunted for food, and people
still eat ostrich.
People still do that, which is fine. But once the market developed in Europe for their feathers to adorn hats, the killing was stepped up. Chased on horseback until they were exhausted or shot, their populations were soon being depleted. In 1807, an estimated 509 kilos of ostrich feathers were imported into France alone.
That's a lot of fucking feathers.
That's a lot of feathers. That's like almost like a car.
Yeah.
At least I don't know how kilos converts to pounds, but that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. That's a lot of birds. By 1850, they had been reduced to near extinction across the Arabian Peninsula, and they had all but disappeared from North Africa before the 19th century was out. In fact, the killing only slowed when the first ostrich farms were set up in the southern Cape of South Africa in 1860. After that, feathers from farmed ostriches dominated the trade and saved the wild ostriches from certain extinction.
Good.
So, not great. It's like, yeah, these birds are cool and whatnot, but you gotta be resourceful.
Ostrich feathers are beautiful. I get it, but good Lord.
Yeah, let's be thinking about be smart,
but
about your resources. How badly do you need to decorate your damn hat? Be ignorant and don't be mean to animals. Yeah. So, feathers as decor for hats, I can understand. Sure. But crossing over to the other strange fad of this era is just unsettling and just plain creeps me out a little bit. And we're kind of crossing into just be nice to animals with this.
Yeah.
And again, no one seems quite sure when or how taxidermy animal hats started, but they became very popular, and many examples I found vary from birds, chickens, squirrels.
Someone putting a whole ass chicken on their head?
Yep, someone put a whole ass chicken on their head, and I have a picture to prove it.
No.
Yep. And perhaps the most horrifying example, if brace yourself, I definitely got really uncomfy with this one, so
trigger warning.
Most horrifying example is that of Miss Kate Fearing-Strong, who attended the 1883 Vanderbilt Ball, which is a whole other weird thing I need to get into one day.
The Vanderbilts in general are an interesting.
Yeah. The Vanderbilt Ball in New York, wearing a hat that featured as a centerpiece a taxidermied kitten.
Nope. Jail. Immediately jail.
Straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not pass collect $200. I hate this person with a burning passion.
I will say, there is, in the world of oddities, there are ethically sourced taxidermied art pieces.
Yes.
Which are super cool. If that were the case, sure, I get it, as an art form. But we're not murdering kittens for fashion.
Being at that, I do not know how the bouts of this came. There are a lot more questions than answers for this because all the info I was really able to find were based on the photo and a little bit about Miss Fearing-Strong. And as if wearing the kitten on her head wasn't enough, she also had 7 cattails sewn into her dress. I don't know how I feel about this.
At least a cat can live without its tail.
Yeah. I tried to find more info on Miss Kate, or as the necklace in her picture implies, her nickname was Puss. I came up with very little, and honestly, I think that's for the better. Yeah. I don't want to know how, where, or why. I think some things are just left better
like the
unanswered.
origins of Crazy Cat Lady.
Yeah, literally though.
That's taking it too far.
I am all for the eccentric and kooky fashion and whatnot, but leave the animals out of it, please. Yeah. I don't know. No. And yeah, so Reddit was very helpful with this one. I got onto this because I found a picture of this squirrel here.
I've seen that one before.
Yeah, so the squirrel is what led me down the rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, why are we doing squirrels for hats? And then we found
fucking chicken.
It's Hey Hey. If Hey Hey was a hat.
That's wild.
Yep, so we have chickens, we have bats. And then this is Miss Kate with her taxidermy cat hat.
That is bigger. Okay, when you said kitten, I was expecting little tiny bit. That's a whole ass cat.
I know, but I'm just like, all the sources and articles I read on it said kitten. So I'm just like, I don't know.
That's not a kitten. That's a grown cat.
That's definitely a young adult cat. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm uncomfy with this.
I don't like it.
But it's weird, and I needed to share the weird, so I'm not alone in this feeling. Suffered through this image, so do y'all.
Yep.
So, yeah, we got weird with it. Some weird hats.
I don't like it.
Leave the animals out of it.
I don't like it.
Dress how you want.
I don't like it at all.
Like, I appreciate now that most, like, when I see, like, fancy Victorian hats like that, people will go with, like, those styrofoam birds you can get from, like,
yeah, and that's fine.
Those are cool.
I've seen some cool hats where, like, they make, like, little nests and then put, like, the fake birds and bird eggs in them.
Yeah.
That I can get behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I get, like, back in the time when this was popular, like, that kind of stuff wasn't available.
Mm-hmm.
So they did, and I get, like, you often you think back, like, beaver skin hats and raccoon tail hats. Like, that was animal product was used to make clothing for centuries.
Exactly.
So, like, I get that it's a, like, it makes, you know, but still, like,
there's a line. There's a line to toe. Yes, animal products are useful for furs and
leather
and leather and whatnot. But as long as it's ethically sourced and you're doing it in a way that maintains the balance.
But there's a whole other level to putting a freaking face on your head.
Yeah.
Like, using animal skin for, like, leather and hide and, like, even, like, the beaver skin hats and whatever.
At least
like,
you're not looking at the thing that you killed.
Wasn't looking back at you in the mirror. Oh, God.
I just imagine, like, this cat is, like, sitting on top of her head, and then she goes to take a picture, like, look in the mirror and be like, meow, bitch.
Meow, bitch. I hate every minute of that.
Yes.
That's just...
It's quite time
the things we've done through the years for fashion.
Now, if we were in a different mindset, and you were to have a taxidermy animal hat, what animal would you put on your hat? I don't know. Like,
a possum.
I
kind of like the idea of, like, a little possum sitting on my head, like, hissing at. Like, if I was going to do it, and I can ethically source it, that's the only way. I would want a crotchety old fucking possum missing half its goddamn teeth, just spitting at people from the top of my head.
There you go. That's how you fend off
That's
people.
how I would do it.
There you go. I like that, because then you can fend off people, like, you weed out.
Yes.
The weird ones.
I would want a crazy ass looking possum on top of my head. All right.
What you got for some spooky spotlights?
All right. Well, as I mentioned earlier, in my desperate endeavor to come up with topics this week when I was struggling, I discovered that May is National Mystery Month. And I decided to honor this celebration by revisiting an iconic mystery source that is very much a part of my childhood memory. So I even wrote in the words in here, back in my day. Because I am old. When you were homesick from school, alone, of course, because it was the 90s and we were all left unattended far too often, you only had two choices of television to keep you company. If you were like me and did not find the late Bob Barker eternally entertaining, you turned to the other iconic legend of the 80s, 90s daytime television, Mr. Robert Stack. Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh boy.
Is probably a very big part of the reason I am obsessed with true crime and the supernatural and paranormal to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I would sit at home and watch Unsolved Mystery marathons at home and scare the shit out of myself because they were terrifying. They were so creepy with the like do music and the way that Robert Stack would narrate them.
He has like a certain cadence that
it
locks you in.
A timbre that's like unnerving. But yeah, so I cannot count how many sick days and summer vacation rain days were spent scaring the crap out of myself watching this television classic. And since we're going down the nostalgic route, I figured I'd run with it. And I did some digging to find mysteries from Unsolved Mysteries. They're from Wisconsin.
Cool.
So we are going to talk about actually it's episode 3 of season 1 of Unsolved Mysteries is when this aired. This is the Tallman House mystery.
Okay.
From Wisconsin. So I have the story here for you. I will read it to you and then we can discuss what we think really happened.
Excellent.
So 32-year-old Alan Tallman and his 30-year-old wife, Debbie, had 2 children, ages 7, Danny, and 1, Marianne. On April 13th, 1986, they moved into a house in South Larrabee Street in Horicon, Wisconsin. Debbie was pregnant at the time. She felt it was their dream home and they would be there for a long time. But according to them, they were later run out of the house by spirits that terrorized them.
Ooh.
The Tallman's house had no known history of hauntings, and they had previously never been given ghosts a second thought. They were regular churchgoers. Debbie was a housewife and mother, and Alan was a shift supervisor at a manufacturing plant. They were credible and responsible citizens, but their paranormal experiences left them deeply scarred. They felt they were in a battle with forces they did not understand, a battle they were destined to lose. Within weeks of moving into their new house, Danny and Marianne, who had rarely been sick, fell ill. According to Debbie, they were in the doctor's office between 1 and 3 times a week.
Oof.
Marianne was hospitalized twice, once for chickenpox and one for an ear infection. Alan got sick as well. At first, they thought the illnesses were due to possible building materials. However, after having the building inspectors out, they found no traces of asbestos or any other toxic substances in the house. Tallman's pet kitten also began acting, quote, crazy. She would run around the house, climb the walls and doors. One night, she ran into Debbie and Alan's bedroom, jumped on the dresser, and attached herself to the plaster wall.
I'm just imagining her running into the wall.
They're describing this, but I was like, this is just cat behavior. Like, I had a cat that would literally climb the walls when I was a kid.
Spider cat.
So, I don't know about the cat part here.
Does whatever a spider cat does.
Yeah, I literally had a cat that would climb the drywall. She's wild.
Theo would try if he could get his...
Yeah. She was itty-bitty. She was this little, 6-pound calico.
Oh.
Her name was Rascal. She'd also hide under the bed, and when you walk by, she'd jump out and bite your feet. She was kind of a terror. But she was my first cat ever.
Love it.
However, both had... where was I? They found a new home for the kitten short time later. On another night, Danny and his babysitter saw a kitchen chair bounce around and rock back and forth. In the fall of 1986, Debbie was diagnosed with placenta previa and was told by doctors not to perform housework. Her mother and sister came to help. However, both had negative feelings about the house. They felt it was, quote, suffocating the family. Her mother could not wait to leave, and her sister would get headaches and feel sick whenever she visited. In November, Debbie gave birth to their second daughter, Sarah. Around that time, Alan's personality began to change. At night, he became short-tempered and easily irritated. He often argued with Debbie over trivial matters. One night, he even threatened to leave the family and went on a drinking binge. Which just sounds like typical male behavior to me, but I will just, In early February of 1987, Alan and Debbie purchased a bunk bed at a secondhand furniture shop and stored it in their basement. In May, they moved it into Danny's old bedroom so Marianne and Sarah could share a room. He moved into the bedroom next door, which used to be his parents' room until they moved into the bigger room.
Mm-hmm.
He also inherited their clock radio. That night, the radio took on a life of its own, moving back and forth between stations. Danny ran to the living room and told Alan and Debbie what had happened. They did not believe him, so sent him back to bed. A few minutes later, he saw the radio dial move by itself. The indicator went from one side to the other. He again told his parents what had happened. Thinking he was having a fit with the radio, they just took it out of his room. Afterward, Danny had trouble sleeping in that room. He would kick and scream and it was time for bed, and he would rarely sleep through the night. He kept hearing someone walk across his carpet and bang on the basement water pipes. One night, he saw a suitcase slide from under his bed, zoom across the floor, and then slide back under. He came out crying to Alan and Debbie. They did not believe him, so they took him back to bed. Poor fucking kid. Minutes later, it happened again. Alan took the suitcase out of the room. They thought he was making up the stories for attention. That summer, Marianne and Sarah had trouble sleeping as well. They would wake in the middle of the night crying and could not fall back asleep. Marianne started having nightmares. She told Alan and Debbie about a voice in her room that shushed her. They also told her they could hear giggling and talking to someone. Alan sometimes stayed in the children's bedrooms to help them fall asleep. While in Danny's room one night, he heard what he thought was mice or rats crawling around. He and Debbie searched the house extensively but found no trace of animal activity. According to them, it was well insulated. In September, Debbie heard the garage door open and close by itself. She started suffering from violent nightmares as well, which she rarely had before moving into the house. In one of these nightmares, intruders came from the basement, lined the family against the wall, and shot them. She also had nightmares of the children being kidnapped or drowned in a river, and felt she was going mad. But for months, they rarely discussed the strange occurrences.
Like, if you just keep ignoring it, though, it's going to get worse. This is, like, a very common theme with these kinds of things. Like, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah. It's always a weird balance of, like, do you ignore it or do you address it? And if you address it, are you feeding into it? So it's like, I get it's tough. Especially if these are people that, like, don't believe in the paranormal. So, like, they're like, oh, explain it away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
One evening in late September, Alan was painting the basement walls when Debbie called him for dinner. He laid the brush on the paint tray and went upstairs. About a half hour later, when he went back to continue painting, he found the brush on the other side of the table, its handle jammed into the paint bucket with the bristle sticking straight upright. A few minutes later, he saw a shadow dart across the basement. He figured something strange was happening in the house, but could not accept yet that it was haunted. One morning, Alan found the basement window removed and neatly propped up against the wall. No valuables had been taken. Debbie noted that a chair would be needed to exit through the window, but nothing had been moved. After that, she rarely went to the basement alone. She felt as if she was being watched. The Tallmans at that time got a dog for protection, but he acted strangely as well. He barked at the house when he was outside. Once inside, he scratched at the door to get out. Other neighborhood dogs would also bark at their home for no apparent reason.
Animals know.
They're in tune.
They can just sense. They sense it.
Speaking of animals, my dog is currently snoring on my foot, and it's hilarious. Alan felt uneasy whenever he came into the house. He felt like something was waiting for him in the garage, watching his every movement. When he closed the garage door, he felt like he was shutting himself in a tomb. While walking from the garage into the house one night, he felt a sharp tug on his lunch pail. In late October, he began suffering with a severe sinus infection. A few nights later, his condition worsened. He was coughing, throwing up, and having trouble breathing. Debbie took him to the hospital, and his mother came to watch the children. She had a bad feeling about the house as well and could not wait to leave. After the children went to bed, she fell asleep on the living room couch. In the middle of the night, she woke up and saw glowing red eyes staring at her through the window.
Nope.
One night in late November, Marianne told Debbie she saw a fire in her room. She also said that someone was watching her. She was so scared that Debbie had to sit with her until she fell asleep. Over the next few days, she talked about the fire on the doors and windows. She also said something was hiding behind her door and waiting until the lights went out to attack.
No thanks.
I can hear that.
Nope.
Yet again, Debbie heard Marianne giggling, laughing, and talking in the middle of the night. She joined her parents in bed and said, "It's coming. It's here." When they asked who was coming, she became upset and asked why they could not see or hear it. Alan and Debbie thought Marianne was making up stories. They didn't mention what she had seen to Danny, but a month later, he told Debbie he had seen a 4-foot-tall, quote, hideous old woman with long back hair standing at his door. He said the woman glowed like fire. Debbie told him it was his imagination and that he should go back to sleep. But a few minutes later, the woman returned. Debbie stayed with him the rest of that night. By that point, they believed their house was haunted. Desperate, they turned to their pastor, Mr. Reverend Wayne Dobratz of St. Stephen's Lutheran Church. He felt the presence of evil in the home and thought they may be victims of the devil. Typical. Keep in mind, this is the middle of Satanic Panic. So there's some hints of that in there. He blessed the house and gave them religious music tapes to play when they felt frightened. He asked them to pray, read the Bible, and attend church every Sunday. Shocker. The Tallmans claimed they never had a moment's peace. Doors banged open and shut. Strange voices called to them from empty rooms. Visions persisted. The children were terrorized. They followed Debbie around the house because they did not want to be alone. For her, nights were chaos. The week before Christmas, Danny started sleeping in the living room because he was too afraid to sleep in his room. At around 3:30 a.m., he saw the old woman standing by the Christmas tree. He asked her what she wanted, but she did not answer. Instead, she just stared at him. She appeared to him 3 times that night, getting bigger each time.
Mm-mm.
When Danny came to comfort him, or Debbie came to comfort him, she noticed he was paralyzed with fear. Alan became afraid for him and his family's life. He had visions of coming home from work and finding them brutally murdered. By Christmas, he had reached his breaking point. He felt he could no longer control what was happening in the house, and he began challenging the entity.
Oh, no. Yeah. This is not going to end well.
He yelled at the entity, saying, quote, "Whatever is in this house, please leave my children alone. If you want to fight, fight me." Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't
ever.
Antagonize it.
You don't tell it to attack. You don't give it that power.
Don't give it permission.
Anyway. Yes. So the very next night, he had a nightmare in which a tornado was heading for the house and he could not find his family. 2 weeks later, on January 7th, 1988, at around 2 a.m., Alan returned home from working the late shift. As he approached the front door, he heard an eerie howling sound and felt a strong gust of wind coming from the direction of the garage. As he was about to open the door, the wind became stronger and louder. It reminded him of the nightmare he'd had. Then a voice came from the wind and said, "Come here." He ran to the side of the house thinking someone was pranking him, but no one was there. After looking for a few minutes, Alan returned to the front door. The howling in the wind began again. The voice loudly repeated, "Come here." When he looked at the garage, he saw red flames coming from it. 2 shimmery green eyes with blood-red pupils looked at him from the windows. Scared, he ran inside, set his lunch pail on the floor, and slammed the door shut, locking it. He stood there for a few seconds and then realized, oh my God, my garage is on fire. He ran back outside, but when he looked at the garage, the flames were gone, and there was no evidence that a fire had ever occurred. The wind was also gone. He quickly went back inside, closed the door, and bolted the lock. He reached down to pick up his lunch pail, but it was flung across the living room and into the kitchen.
Did you think of your
Yes, the brick story.
The brick.
Trauma. Alan ran to the bedroom and jumped in bed with his wife. He asked if she had heard howling, but she had not. He could still hear it from the bedroom. He was terrified. She'd never seen him like that, and they were so scared they stayed awake the entire night. Alan believed the entity was now focusing on him. Well, duh, buddy. You invited it to.
You antagonized it, man.
Although he could not see it like his children, he could feel its presence. He had trouble sleeping at night, and it kept waking him up. Every night, he and Debbie kept the lights on and locked all the doors and windows. If they did not lock the basement and garage doors, they would rattle all night long. On the afternoon of Saturday, January 9th, Alan's 16-year-old brother, Jonathan, was outside the home when he saw a floating red light in the garage. When he and Alan entered the garage, the light had vanished. That night, Alan slept on the floor in Marianne and Sarah's room. The girls were traumatized and needed help falling asleep. While lying on the floor, Alan heard a howling sound similar to the one he'd heard outside a few nights earlier. A fog rose from the floor and surrounded him. It reached the ceiling and turned into a human-like figure with red eyes and green pupils. It raised its arm, pointed at him, and said, "You're dead," and then dispersed in a burst of light.
No, thank you.
Right. When Alan staggered out of the bedroom, he would not talk to Debbie. His lips were blue and his skin was white. The first thought he had was that he was having a heart attack. She tried to get him to tell her it happened, but all he did was stand there with tears running from his eyes, saying, "Leave me alone." She called the Reverend and asked him to come over right away. When he arrived a few minutes later, he noticed Alan was frightened and shaking. He urged them to leave the house and stay with family. As they left, Debbie saw a small, intense flame at the top of the garage that quickly dispersed. The next night, they returned. The Reverend blessed the house, led them in prayers and communion, and told them to play religious music throughout the night. Yeah.
Why do we think that this is going to work? Like, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Go away, ghost. This is
right. And the ghost's like,
I'm going
this
to
is annoying.
Get out of the house.
So I'm going to fuck with you some more. If I was a ghost and they played annoying music like that all night, I would just make it worse. But for them, it worked because that night they did not have any issues. The next night, however, would be different. On Monday, January 11th, Alan was working late and asked Jonathan, his younger brother, to watch over Marianne and Sarah until they fell asleep. Jonathan was a skeptic. That night, he changed his mind. At around 8 p.m., he was lying on the floor and he heard Sarah say, "Hi there." When he turned towards her, he saw the same figure Alan had seen 2 nights earlier. As it moved towards him, it said, "Now you're involved," and then melted onto the floor.
Nope. No, thank you.
Jonathan screamed and yelled for Debbie. She was too frightened to enter the bedroom. She asked Danny to see what was happening. Poor kid. You don't make your child go in when you can't. Good Lord. He said, "It's there. I can see it." Marianne came out and said she saw it too. Finally, Jonathan came out and Debbie asked him what happened. He said it was in the bedroom. She asked where Sarah was, and he said that she was still in the room. Why leave the baby?
Why are we leaving the baby?
Why are we leaving the infant? Logic. Anyway, she told him to get Sarah and that they were leaving. She could not handle it anymore. As they pulled out of the driveway, Danny yelled, "Mom, it's looking out the window looking at us." Debbie took his word and did not look back. They went to Alan's work. She told him what had happened, and she refused to return to the house. Later that night, he drove past the house. All the lights were on, even though only the light in Danny's room and the living room were on when they left.
Mm.
The Tallman spent the night with Alan's mother. The next morning, he returned to the house to get their belongings. Only the living room light was on, and the light in Danny's room was off. He found no problem with the lights. A few days later, they picked up the rest of their belongings and moved in with relatives. The Reverend and another pastor conducted a house cleansing, ritual of prayers, and scripture readings. Shortly afterward, rumors about the haunting spread, and some claimed there was a portal to hell in the basement. There's always a portal to hell in the basement in these stories. They also had claims of blood dripping from the walls and a snowblower clearing the driveway on its own.
That's a little fantastic.
That seems a little.
I mean, if I have a ghost that's gonna be doing house chores for me, sure, they can stay.
You're gonna snowblow and rake and have at it. You can stay. Dozens of people drove by or walked by the house, and the police briefly had to barricade the street to keep people away. On January 21st, the police chief contacted Alan, and his family were still frightened and had trouble sleeping. He was unwilling to discuss it because he did not want to seem crazy. However, the chief convinced the Tallmans to come to the police station and discuss their experiences. After meeting with the Tallmans, he believed they were sincere and had been through an emotionally draining experience. He promised them confidentiality and tried to protect them from the press and bystanders. He was also convinced them to meet with a journalist named James Nelson to dispel the rumors about the haunting. On January 25th, the chief and two other officers visited the house. While they were there, the phone rang a few times. When they answered it, the line was dead. They disabled the receiver, but the phone continued to ring. Once again, the line being dead.
Mm.
A few weeks later, on February 13th, the Tallmans had the bunk bed destroyed and buried in a private landfill. They also put their house up for sale. Since then, they have moved to a new home in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, I've been to, and have not experienced any paranormal phenomena. However, Debbie still believes it will take time for things to return to normal for them. She's afraid of the dark still and being alone at night. After the Tallmans left their old house, people had asked them many times, "Would this follow you?" Debbie never thought it could happen in the first place, so she did not know if this was at the end of the story. As of April, a new family had moved into the Tallmans' house and had not reported any problems.
Okay. Dang, that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a few more kind of behind the scenes information. Basically just information about the house when it was built and all that kind of stuff. But the kind of interesting, there's a whole list of different paranormal investigators that have visited the house. There was a psychic said that she felt hot spots in the house when she visited. There's also speculation that perhaps it was built on a Native American burial ground, which I feel was just kind of honestly a cop-out excuse people would use back in the 80s and 90s. Whenever something was inexplicably terrifying or paranormal, it'd be like, oh, it must, and to be fair, much of Wisconsin is in indigenous land. So it's possible, but I don't know. It just feels kind of a cop-out.
A little bit, and almost it's a little racist too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It comes from a place of oh, it must be that,
Oh, it must be
it
that.
Must be that.
It must be bad.
If it's really bad.
To put a negative connotation on it. Be well, no, y'all took their land.
Yeah. They,
we are on
there are skeptics that claim that, they suspect perhaps black mold or trapped methane gas seeping into the house might have caused hallucinations.
That's true.
So that's kind of what some people believe was really happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And even a paranormal investigator from that time named Paul Kurtz said that the story was similar to other cases in which people misinterpreted normal events as supernatural, and that were then offered money for publication, which again plays into the satanic panic of it all, where people would sell their stories,
yuck it up, and be kind of extrapolate on it.
Yeah, and it's come out since that most of their neighbors didn't believe them. But yeah, it's interesting. It was the first. This case was first aired in October of 1988 for the Halloween episode of Unsolved Mysteries, along with the story of the Queen Mary, the General Wayne Inn, and the Tatum House.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was excluded when they did the Film Rise release of Robert Stack episodes because they did not do any of the ghost episodes in that. They did a separate release of the DVD for that.
Gotcha.
But it is considered one of the most frightening and well-known paranormal cases of Unsolved Mysteries.
Huh. Very cool.
Yeah, and the reenactments were actually filmed in the original house.
Really?
Which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
You can. So I did watch the episode. Because you can find it. It's on YouTube. It's like 12 minutes long, the segment. And it's if nothing else, it's worth it for the like quintessential 80s reenactments. I'm talking like full on like the 80s stash on the dad and like the bad filming and the over dramatization of everything. So like if nothing else, it's an entertainment for that. But it's just like, I think, interesting as like someone who grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries. They didn't do a lot of ghost ones. It was primarily like true crime related. But every once in a while they dive into like paranormal. I very distinctly remember watching an episode that was on like, is spontaneous human combustion a real thing? Oh. And that one like stuck with me for years.
I bet.
It's a super interesting one. But yeah, it was always kind of like, it just felt kind of played up when they did the ghost ones. Like, this just kind of feels like some, because there was always that like stereotypical haunting stuff. And there was always some religious leader or another. Oh, it's the devil, and you gotta pray and bless the house and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a trope. Almost.
Yes, yeah. You know, it was the 80s. This is like tail end of Satanic Panic era, where like. If you don't know what Satanic Panic is, I will probably cover it at some point because it's fascinating. But it's literally like it's been proven that the Satanic Panic thing and like satanic cults, they were blamed for all of this crazy abuse in the 80s was all faked.
All faked.
It was all lies by people who wanted their 15 minutes of fame.
Kind of like a giant nationwide mass hysteria, or like oh, I can't remember the term for it, where it's like a giant group of people believing the same thing.
Yeah,
like fall.
Like, the same I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it either, but yeah, it literally was. It's been proven that like they've actually finally either people that were involved in it later in life came out and said, yeah, I made the whole thing up, or they've like done the evidence and proved that like it was just like literally impossible for this to have happened. So yeah, it's wild. But I still love me some Unsolved Mysteries. I was giddy as hell when Netflix rebooted it. I have not watched the newest season, so no spoilers, please. But I love it. I love Unsolved Mysteries. I think it is a classic to any 90s kid, 80s kid. Like, it's got a special place in my heart. As cheesy as it was, it's worth a watch.
Hey, we like a good cheese.
I love some cheese.
We love a good Gouda.
I do love Gouda, actually. It's one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
All right, what are you spookying us with?
Well, it's funny that you're talking about Unsolved Mysteries, because I have one.
Woo! Hey, perfect.
And this one is courtesy of the Duluth News Tribune.
She has a whole ass newspaper.
I have a full ass newspaper right in front of me.
Well, not a whole newspaper, but a piece of a newspaper.
Yes. We are going to be talking about an unsolved murder or possible murder mystery from 1937.
Ooh.
This in 1937. Grandma in Love Triangle faced murder charge. In a Great Depression, Minnesota, the murder trial of Beatrice Johnke captivated the public.
Interesting.
So we got a local
I love mystery. A murder mystery. I am here for it.
Yeah. So we get to jump in and get a little background, some possible third-party involvement, and a little bit of the trial and the outcome, or maybe not so much outcome of it.
Huh.
We shall
Intrigued.
see.
I am intrigued.
We shall see. Alrighty. South St. Paul, Minnesota.
Minnesota. We are, caffeine's wearing off.
The caffeine has left the building.
Should have got a quad shot like me.
Yeah,
I'm flying high.
I would have been up till 2 a.m, and I don't need that.
That's valid.
This article comes to us by Jeremy Fugelberg. So thank you. Credits to you. Good job.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. Alrighty, here we go. South St. Paul, Minnesota. Louis Johnke was sick again. It had been a long summer for the factory worker. It was 1937, the Great Depression. Jobs were hard to find. He felt lucky to have a job at the Kudashi meatpacking plant in Newport, Minnesota. Each day he would bid goodbye to his wife Beatrice from their home on North Concord Street in South St. Paul and make his way to the plant for another day of work. Except for when he fell ill. That seemed to be happening a lot.
I have a suspicion.
Some continuous health problems are popping up here.
I have a suspicion of where this is going. We'll see if I'm accurate.
Since June, Louis had been hospitalized 4 times for illness, seemingly severe stomach poisoning, only to recover again and again. Then, in August, he was hospitalized again, this time for the last time.
Dun, dun,
Dun! On August 19th, 1937, Louis Johnke died in the hospital. His doctors were suspicious. They ordered an autopsy and sent his stomach contents to a University of Minnesota laboratory. Inside his stomach, they found enough arsenic to kill him many times over.
Damn!
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, all the things I've read about arsenic, it only takes a small amount.
Very small amount.
It's a very small amount.
Arsenic
to kill
is no joke.
Yeah. One of these days we should get into the Tylenol arsenic debacle.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Or the radon girls is really interesting too.
Ooh, yes, with the uranium.
The uranium poisoning.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Alrighty. So, enough arsenic in his stomach to kill him many times over. John's case wasn't a medical mystery. This was murder.
Dun, dun, dun.
The findings would detonate a scandal. It would result in a headline-grabbing arrest and trial of Beatrice Johnke that would reveal damning evidence, a sordid affair, and surprise witnesses, and results in a verdict that shocked the city. Bum, bum, bum. Good hooks, Jeremy.
Well written.
Very well written.
Right.
That's kind of what brought me in. I was like, yes, I need to read this. Because I flipped through, this is a newspaper I get from work, actually.
Oh, nice.
And in one of the morbid things that I have to kind of do at my job is when we get newspapers, I check the obituaries. So then I can cross-reference them with our patient lists to mark if any of them have deceased. So that's why
That's very morbid.
It's a little morbid.
But on par for what we do.
Yeah. So while looking at the obituaries, I fell across this newspaper article within it too. So the next section, North Dakota love, Minnesota love triangle? ? The Johnkes were both from North Dakota. Beatrice grew up on her father's farm near Matador. Sorry, it's spaced out weird. Matador, North Dakota, and Louis farmed nearby. They were married in Hankinson, North Dakota, before moving to South St. Paul. They raised 2 daughters, both of whom got married, and one bore a grandson, making Louis and Beatrice young grandparents. When Louis died, he was 45.
Damn.
And Beatrice was 41. So they were
young grandparents.
They were a young couple, which is kind of on par.
I would say for that era, that's pretty normal, I'd say. But
they're usually around that time, that's when people were still getting married at 16, 17.
Yeah, 19, 20 at the latest.
Yeah. So very, very young. Louis's death was not initially a big news story, but Beatrice's arrest certainly was. On October 5th, 1937, she was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in her husband's death. She faced the electric chair.
Damn! They were serious.
We escalated here. Dakota County Attorney Harold E. Stasness was on the case. He implied a love triangle might be behind the murder. The other man in the case had been arrested as a material witness, it said. Satness certainly knew how to capture the newspaper's attention. He was becoming a well-known political figure at the time. He would be elected governor the following year, the youngest ever to attain that position at the age of 31.
Damn.
So maybe this was kind of like a political play,
Mhm.
a little bit, get some notoriety, get his name out there.
Yep.
So then people are like, oh, hey, that guy, he was on trial, was involved in the trial here. Yeah, I know him. Because most of the time political runs are just popularity contests, unfortunately. On November 9th, a grand jury indicted Beatrice Jonke on a charge of first-degree murder, premeditation, so meaning planned ahead.
Mhm.
The stage was set for a dramatic trial scheduled for January of 1938, so a couple months out. The trial, starting January 10th, 1938, in the Dakota County Courthouse in Hastings, Minnesota, was a sensation, attended by numerous news reporters and a flood of interested members of the public, many of them women. They're probably like, ooh, how'd she do it? How can I get away with it?
Yeah. You know, this is back when it was hard to get a divorce. So,
Yep.
You know, you got to take matters into your hands if your husband isn't treating you right.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Once the trial began, the prosecution wasted no time putting on the stand their star witness, Carl Sandgren. He was a 32, he was 32, a Works Progress Administration worker and part-time nightclub waiter. He was also Beatrice Jonke's paramour. Sandgren's salacious retelling of his and Jonke's relationship over the previous 3 years fueled the prosecution's claim that her infatuation with Sandgren led to her deciding to slowly and methodically poison her husband in the summer of 1937. Beatrice Jonke had told him her husband was, quote, going nuts, Sandgren said. She came where I worked and told me the old man was sick, he testified. She said he
45, old man.
This old man.
Damn.
Yeah, I hope I'm not. No, we're not. No,
Right?
That's not old.
That's very young still.
That's very young. At least from this day and age. She came where I worked and told me that the old man was sick, he testified. She said he had taken poison and was trying to kill himself. So it sounds like she's trying to plant the seeds of like, oh man, he's having his own issues. He did this to himself. Also, both of the Jonke's dogs had died of arsenic poisoning. The prosecution dangled the idea that they had been Beatrice Jonke's trial run for the murder. Like, leave the animals out of it. Doggos. Leave the animals out of this.
Beatrice, I might have been on your side until this point.
Mm-hmm. Now
poisoning a husband?
Yeah, we can forgive it.
There could be extenuating circumstances we didn't know about. The doggos? No. Yep, you deserve this chair.
Yep.
Fry that bitch. Sizzle, motherfucker.
However, Jonke's defense team was ready with significant factors that pointed to her innocence. Doctors first labeled her husband's death as natural cause, as naturally caused. Jonke's stomach contents were left out in the open, accessible to anyone for hours, raising the possibility of contamination. So there's like a little break of evidence.
Reasonable doubt.
Break of evidence or broke the chain.
Yep.
Also, the prosecution had no evidence of Beatrice Jonke buying the poison or witnesses of her administering it. The defense had its own circumstantial evidence. Beatrice Jonke had cared for her husband like a mercy angel, it was claimed, and spent that money she had to give him a nice funeral. The case was sent to the jury, which agonized over its decision, while the judge, lawyers, and the public, and Beatrice Jonke waited a decision. Finally, on January 15th, 1938, after a 70-hour, 35-minute deliberation marathon across 3 days, the jury reached a verdict. Beatrice Jonke was found
not guilty.
Not guilty.
Right. As soon as you said the reasonable doubt, I was like, they're going to acquit her.
Yep. She was found not guilty, acquitted of her husband's murder. I feel just the way I did before, she told reporters. I expected to be freed. I had nothing to worry about. The prosecution's circumstantial evidence hadn't met the burden of proof, the jury members said. Beatrice Jonke was a widow, but for now, the first time in months, she was free. Louis Jonke's murder, if it was that, was never officially solved.
Dang, she got away with murder.
So what do you guys think? Did she do it?
Oh, she totally did it.
Do.
And like I said, if it wasn't for the dogs, I'd be all for it.
And then, like, look at this. And she got some pictures of her, and the caption is, Beatrice Jonke is shown wearing a fur coat during her January 1938 trial
She
for
is
murder.
smirking.
She's smirking.
That lady, she knows she got away with it.
Like, she looks smug a little bit. Like, like, I had nothing to do with it. So,
I do
declare. So, yeah, husbands, don't piss off your wife. If, I don't know. Well, don't do that in general, but, ooh, watch out.
Get a stomachache, test for arsenic.
Yep. So, yeah. So, little murderous grandma. I love the fact that she's called grandma in this. Like, yes, she is
she
one.
technically was one.
Technically, she was one. She's 41.
Also, if she's 41, that photo is not flattering.
No, it's not.
Because she looks like 61 in that photo.
She definitely looks older in this photo.
I suppose this is the 30s. It's the Great Depression, so times were harder.
But for sure. So,
interesting.
Yeah, the scandalous love triangle of 1937.
You know, we've come full circle from orgies to scandalous love triangles.
There we go. It all connects.
It all connects. I think we need to pick a tarot card.
Yes,
All right. I got us new tarot cards.
Hooray!
That have like the base meaning on the card.
So we don't have to look it up.
Which sad means no more Buffy tarot. But we don't have to bore you with our Googling. So I have not shuffled these at all. These are brand spanking new.
We'll see if we can connect our things to it.
We'll see if Carson can remember the card this time. You know I always take a picture of it. You could just text me.
I know, I forgot. That's the thing. I forgot to text you.
Oh my goodness.
So if we need further proof that I am neurodivergent,
yeah,
here we
proof's
are.
in the pudding.
Proof's in the pudding, y'all.
Which actually sounds pretty good right now. I could go for some pudding.
I mean, we got bread.
Bread is better than pudding.
Bread pudding.
I actually don't like bread pudding.
Really?
I'm weird. It's got a weird consistency. I don't like soggy bread.
That's fair.
So.
That's fair.
Ooh, I like the cover of that card.
Ooh, that is cool.
There's a really, so I got these online and I'm very excited to try them out. This is their first outing. Pick a card, any card. Bloop.
All right, the Tower.
Oh, I love the Tower.
Ooh.
All right, what is the Tower all about?
All right.
This one I might already know anyway because it's Major Arcana. But
yes. Tower is a major arcana card in the tarot deck that depicts a tower being struck by lightning with people falling from it.
The Tower is not a card you want in your deck.
No, it's not.
Or in your reading.
This card symbolizes sudden upheaval, destruction, revelation, and unexpected change. Here is some interpretations of the card. Uprights, sudden change, upheavals, chaos, revelation, awakening, and freedom. Reverse, tarot spread answer. I don't know what that means.
So if you don't know anything about tarot, reversed means that when you're dealing the deck, if the card gets flipped upside down, it means a reverse of the original meaning.
Okay. Interesting. So instead of like a sudden change, it's like an expected change.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Huh. And it's like elements of fire.
This could be fun.
This could be very fun.
I feel like this one's gonna give us some good stuff.
We got some fun things we could play with here.
Yes.
Okay. Challenge accepted, and I will remember this time.
Maybe you should take a picture of it this time.
I probably should.
When you have it.
I'm gonna do that right
that will
now.
probably be for the best.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, this was a long one, but I think it was fun. Like we kind of covered all over the place. Little ghosties, a little Greek mythology,
some weird practices from fashion,
murder trials, We got weird. We got wild. We had fun.
We saw chickens on people's heads.
I still, no.
Nope.
But now we get to eat bread.
Let's go get some bread.
Yay!
Bread,
all right.
Bread.
Thank you for joining us for episode 8 of Weird Shit Wednesday. We'll see you next time. I've been Kelly.
I've been Carson.
Have a wild and weird day.
Keep it weird, man.
Keep it weird.